Hello, everybody. It's Sunday night. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc., and I am Servette Hassan. Welcome. First of all, happy Mother's Day. It is Mother's Day. I'm a mother. And if you're not a mother, it doesn't matter. You have a mother. And if you don't talk to your mother or your mother's passed on, it doesn't matter. It's still Mother's Day. And it's a wonderful time to just hold that in our place, in our hearts. And all my good wishes go out to everybody today for a happy Mother's Day. We have a really great show because you might be dreaming of your mother if your mother's not here. And this show is based all upon dreams and what they mean. I have a really great guest tonight. I always say that, but this guy's fascinating. I read his book, and I'm really intrigued because don't we all want to know what our dreams really mean? His name is Dr. Christopher Sowton. He's written a book called Dreamworking, How to Listen to the Inner Guidance of Your Dreams. So that's all we're going to be talking about tonight, your dreams and what they mean and how to interpret them, which is really important. Anyway, he has a BA from the University of Toronto, and he's calling from Toronto, Canada, I'm sure. So we really, really thank him for doing that on Mother's Day. On top of that, because it's late there. It's 3 hours ahead already. And on top of that, he's also a doctor of naturopathic medicine from the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, and he's licensed as a registered psychotherapist, so in Ontario, Canada as well. And on top of that, he's also running around teaching DreamWork seminars for healthcare practitioners and runs a private healthcare practice himself, specializing in naturopathy and homeopathy and counseling and incorporating the whole dream working purpose into healthcare as well. So let's welcome Dr. Christopher Sowton. Thank you for being with me tonight.
Thanks very much for inviting me on the show.
Great. It's a great book, and it's a fascinating subject because, I mean, I could talk about this for hours. So we're going to have to cram it in to one, which, sounds like a long time, but it's not when you start to talking about it. But, okay, So let me just start at the beginning. What got you interested in the whole subject of dream working?
Well, that's a good question. As a child, there was no real tradition in my family of talking about dreams or understanding dreams or nothing like that. So it wasn't until I was in the naturopathic college in the mid 1980s that I became really interested in them, and originally through the Jungian tradition of dream work, and I became the go-to person at my college for anyone who wanted to talk about a dream. And all my classmates would come to me when they had an interesting or puzzling or mysterious dream. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to the clinic, lo and behold, I found myself working with dreams right from the beginning with my very first patients in the student clinic.
Right.
And I've never really looked back. It was.
Yeah, just full. Well, these people, these students, your fellow students that were coming to you, were they coming to you because you were able to interpret the dream for them? Was there something you knew that you were giving them insight just naturally, intuitively? Was that just coming to you?
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, I used to think that everybody could learn how to work with dreams equally, and I'm not so sure about that. I mean, some people seem to be much more at home and more comfortable in the world of the dream and with the language of dreams.
Right.
So I'm not sure about that now. I do still think it's a teachable and learnable skill.
I agree.
How to be a dream worker, by which I simply mean how to be able to consistently help other people get more out of their dream life.
Right, exactly. I mean, one thing I tell people right off the bat, we'll talk about this probably later, is that, just because you dream of a black cat and I dream of a black cat doesn't mean it means the same thing. To me, it's a good sign. I like black cats. So, there's a real there's a real danger in you talk about this in your book. There's a real danger into going into fixed meanings of certain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I know dream dictionaries are very popular, and I've seen a lot of them. Mm-hmm. But the problem with them, the risk of using a dream dictionary is that it tends to be reductionistic. It will say that a snake means this or a spider means that. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's really not true, because, as you say, a snake in your dream could mean something very different from a snake in my dream or somebody else's dream.
Right.
So you have to be really careful with that.
Right.
I don't believe very individualized to the person and to what they're going through at that particular time in their life.
Right, exactly. And I think you have to really dig deep inside to figure it. Now, I'm from the old school of Carl Jung, where everything in the dream is you. Every person in the, everything is. You have a great example of this. You talk about earlier on in your book. This is kind of what you mean by all of this. You had a dream, the big loon. You're driving in your car. You notice something. I'm doing this from memory because I don't have it right in front of me this second. I have your book in front of me, but I don't.
Well, that wasn't my dream. That was one of my clients' dreams.
Okay.
But I know the one. Yeah.
Right.
The one you're talking about.
Right. And everything in the dream related to something that meant something to that client. In that
case, yeah.
Right.
Everything in that dream was a part of that dreamer. And that often is true, but on the other hand, you have to be aware that we can dream about things outside of ourselves, that are in the external world, that are affecting us. So I don't think it is true that everything in the dream is a part of us. Mm. I know you hear that said very often. Mm-hmm. But I do think we can dream about things and people in our lives that are bothering us or troubling us, scaring us, or so we can dream about external things. So I always like to get oriented with this inner-outer question. One of the first questions you can ask when you're trying to think your way into a dream and get a sense of what it's trying to tell you is that figure in the dream inner, that is to say, a part of me, mm-hmm. or is it outer? Is it representing someone or something in my life? So it's a very good orienting question.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, and the reason I like your book so much, and it's called Dreamworking by Dr. Christopher Sowton for people out there listening, is that you really give a practical application to all of this. I mean, it's not just here you're dreaming, this is kind of what it means, this is how to catch the dream, it gives it a practical application. It really gets into figuring out how your dreams are trying to guide you. So
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's, a lot of people are fascinated by dreams, mm-hmm. but they don't actually do very much with them. They're happy to stay on the level of, wow, this is amazing. This is so fascinating. What does this mean? Mm-hmm. And that, I've got nothing against that because it is fascinating.
Right.
But if you take it to the next step and you kind of shift the question from what does it mean to what is it asking me for, mm-hmm. then you're moving into a more dynamic position, I think, and you're trying to tune in the guidance of the dream.
Right.
In other words, that the dream is asking you to do something. It's trying to guide you somewhere. And then if you actually take the dream's advice and act on it, mm-hmm. then you're really moving forward. You're really, it's a very exciting tool for personal growth.
Well, do you think every time you dream, there's a message there, or is it just sometimes?
No,
Right.
No, I don't think so. There are a lot of dreams that are, it's just your sleeping brain doing whatever it's doing.
Right,
And
right.
some of them,
Right.
some of them seem very chaotic, very disorganized, very mundane.
Uh-huh.
And you've got to prioritize because they're not all equal, and you don't have time. Probably, if you're most of us, you don't have time to work on every dream. So you're going to be choosing.
Right.
And I would suggest choosing one where you feel that kind of tingling sense that it's trying to tell you something. It's communicating.
Right.
There's a quality of, I think somebody's trying to tell me something. And just pick that dream and do the full workup on it.
Right. Well, okay. So, you've probably heard this before. You know that story of the woman who's dreaming about a monster that's chasing her every single night again and again and again.
Yeah.
And it's chasing her. Finally, she decides that's enough. And in her dream one night, she just said, "Look, what do you want, monster? What do you want?" And the monster says, "I don't know, lady. It's your dream."
Yeah.
It's that same,
right.
We have to pick. Okay, so how do you remember your dreams? Because some people don't.
Yeah, I know. Some people really have trouble with dream recall.
Right.
And I do think you should spend a little time, if you are one of those people, spend a little time figuring out which part of the dream recall is difficult for you. So, I break it down into 3 parts. The first part is stimulating the dream channel so that you're having vivid dreams in the first place. And some people have trouble in that department. The second problem is catching a hold of them just as you're waking up in the morning. That's what I call dream catching. It's like, oh, yeah, I remember something. And you're kind of on the border between sleep and awake, and that's a time where a lot of people, they choose to go back to sleep if they have the choice, rather than kind of wake themselves up a little bit more and make the effort to remember the dream. And of course, a lot of other people have the alarm clock going off, so the dream is just chased away by the fact that they have to get up. And then the third area, which is actually, I think, the most problematic for most people, is getting it into the long-term memory, because they actually do remember it when they wake up first thing, but they've completely forgotten it by lunchtime. It's because they didn't do whatever operation was necessary to remember it long-term. So you got to figure out, am I having trouble in the first area, the second area, the third area, or all 3? And I have particular exercises that are aimed at each one of those areas.
I was just going to ask that. So there are techniques you can use to.
Yeah. And
I know people say, the first thing you should do in the morning when you do wake up and start to remember a dream is to write it down.
Yeah. And if you sleep with another person, you have a partner that you live with,
hopefully,
who is willing and able to listen to your dreams and give you feedback, that's another good thing to do, is to speak it aloud to that person and discuss it a little bit. But if you one thing that does work for a lot of people is just running it through your mind twice. And that really works for me. So I just go through it. As soon as I wake up and I say to myself, I had a dream.
Right.
So I'm still in bed. I'm still 2/3 asleep. But part of my brain is awake enough to recognize that I just had a dream. And then I go back into it. And I go just to whatever part I can remember. And then once I'm back in it, other parts of it may come back and open up again.
Yeah,
and
that's
then I
true.
do it again. And then by that time, I've pretty much got it into my memory. So then I can choose, whether I want that to be one of the dreams that I'm really going to work on for the week.
Right. Oh, so you work on it for a week. It's like this
Well,
is,
yeah.
you get this
You know,
feeling, right?
Yeah, that's, coming back to the point that we probably, most people wouldn't have time to do a full dream workup more than once a week. Unless, if you do, that's great. That's terrific.
Okay. So how do you apply it then? Do you analyze, do you take it apart like the loon thing where he's trying to turn right but turns left in his dream, and that means he's not sure which way to go? I'm sure that's not what it was, but that's just an example off the top.
Well, I try to think of what is the goal that we're aiming for.
Right.
For me, it's the main thing is to get it connected to your life, so you have that aha moment where it's like, oh yeah, I know how that connects to my life. That is really what you're aiming for. So it's not so much analysis or interpretation as just connection to your life.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a fairly simple thing.
Right. You had an example of that too, again, with a patient that was suffering from anxiety and lack of confidence, and she kept having a dream about being 3 or 5 years old, and it related to that. It made it more understandable to her as to why she still had this lack of confidence in herself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it brings something up in us that we need to address. That's our subconscious mind working, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, that comes back to the word guidance, which is in, how to listen to the inner guidance of your dream life. That's really what I'm after. I really think we have a part of us which people call by many different names. You could call it the unconscious. You could call it the inner wisdom, the inner guide. There are many names for it, but I do think we have a part of us that is larger than we are and wiser than we are, and it knows more than we do, and it is trying to communicate with us.
Right.
And it does that through various means. And one of them is through the dream life. I think the dream life is it's a special and interesting case because our normal ego consciousness, with all its hang-ups and its stuckness and all its mindsets, is kind of asleep.
Right.
It's offline. It's very relaxed. So we're very open to receiving new information and new insight while we're dreaming.
Well,
so
go ahead. Finish.
What we have to do is remember those dreams and actually think about them.
Right. Pay attention to them. But have you ever had a prophetic dream where you dreamt something and it happened later?
You know what? I'm not very strong in the prophetic dream department. No, I know a lot of people who have, but that is not something that happens to me.
Well, no. I have. That happened to me, and it doesn't happen very often, but I dreamt, this was like over 2 decades ago, I dreamt that I was standing in the rain, and the man that I loved, I was saying, I don't know how I'm going to live without you. I don't know how I'm going to live without you. And I was crying, and I thought he was going to leave me. And, long story short, I followed him around for a few days, and it was just really stupid, and I forgot about it. And 6 months later, he had an aneurysm, and he was gone, and I was standing in the rain under a tree exactly in that same spot as I was in my dream, and I was saying, how am I going to live without him? How am I going to live without him? And I had no clue, and I didn't even remember I dreamt that until a little bit later. And then I went,
until
oh my God.
you had the actual waking experience.
Right. I went, oh my God, I dreamt this.
Isn't that remarkable how the dreaming mind can go into the future like that?
Right. And also, my father, I was born in Pakistan. And my parents were born in India because there was no Pakistan at the time. But anyway, I grew up in London and Montreal, so I'm a Canadian citizen, a British citizen, and an American. But he's from that old country, that old school from forever ago. And, I'll tell you something. Every time he's had a dream about me, and he doesn't have them very often, but every single time he's had one, it happens. I have to oh my God, are you serious? And he only tells me good ones or maybe he has others, I don't know. And he does not have them often, but I'm telling you, every time he has one, it's right on the money.
Uh-huh.
How do you explain that? You can't.
Well, it's very difficult to explain. I mean, the modern scientific paradigm, so-called, really doesn't have an explanation for it because the future is supposed to have not happened yet, so how can we know about it so precisely? And yet, these incidents of prophetic and precognitive dreams are very well documented. They're actually quite frequent.
Really?
I have a colleague who's written a whole book on it. He calls them heads-up dreams.
Wow.
They're just dreams that go into the future, usually only 1 or 2 days in the future, but sometimes more than that.
Huh.
Sometimes several weeks or even months into the future. And, his name is Carlisle Smith, and his book is called Heads Up Dreaming, for those of you who are really interested in this aspect of dreaming.
Good, yeah. That's fascinating, too. What about dreams that reoccur? That people that have the same dream over and over and over.
That is so common, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah. I think it's very important. I have a whole part of my book that's dedicated to this, to distinguish between what I call functional repetitiveness and dysfunctional repetitiveness. So let's go with the functional first. Often dreams will repeat because they're trying to deliver a message to you. And if you don't get the message and do something about it, then they'll keep repeating, usually with escalating urgency and intensity.
Right.
So that is functional repetitiveness. And the dream that you mentioned briefly before, where you're being chased by somebody, or a scary figure is knocking at your door, but you're too scared to go open the door and encounter them, that's functional repetitiveness. It's as if your unconscious is saying, please, do something about this. Don't go through your whole life being tormented by this figure chasing you or knocking at your door. Be courageous. Turn around and ask it who it is and what it wants. And then as soon as you do that, the whole thing will change. And it will be a remarkable transformation. So that's why it's repeating in that case, to give you a chance to encounter what needs to be encountered. Now, meanwhile, we also have what I call dysfunctional repetitiveness, which is a dream repeating over and over again simply because the circuit for it exists in your brain, kind of like a Groundhog Day where the same thing happens again and again. And it's just like your brain has a loop, a brain worm, they call it in German, and it just replays itself again and again. And it's not bringing any new information or communication. It's just doing its own thing. And a classic example of that is the school anxiety dream, which almost everyone in North America has, and probably worldwide even, where you're back at your school or your college and you're anxious because you haven't been going to class, or you're not prepared, or you're going to fail, or you're being held back, or you're going to miss a test, whatever. We all have our versions of this. And you know what? They're not really important. They're just something that your brain is doing repeatedly because it got, this neural circuit got established a long time ago, and now it has its own life, and it just keeps revisiting you in your dream. the best thing to do with those is to train yourself to be aware, to catch yourself and say, oh, wait, I'm not in college anymore. I haven't been in college for 20 years. Where's the door? I'm going to walk out of here. And you actually walk out of your college or your school and you go somewhere else. And when you do that a few times,
right,
you'll probably stop having that dream.
Well, so do you tell yourself that before you go to sleep, that if I have that dream, I'm going to not dream?
Yeah, I'm talking about actually practicing this while you're awake.
Yeah, okay.
And then eventually it will change your dream life. Now, if you can actually do it while you're asleep, that's even more effective, probably.
Well,
that would be called lucid dreaming. Lucid dream being a dream where you're to some degree aware that you're in a dream and that you can to some degree influence the outcome of the dream.
Well,
so you could do it that way if you're a lucid dreamer.
I don't know. I don't think I am a lucid dreamer, but I dreamt a dream of when I was back in corporate America at a job I hated, or didn't hate, but something I wasn't enjoying at the time, so years ago. And I said to myself in my dream, why are you dreaming this now anymore? And then
you were pretty close to lucid there.
Yeah, then I woke up. That's all I remember that. That's all I remembered.
Yeah. If you had not woken up, if you'd stayed in it.
Yeah.
You see how close to being lucid, because you're only one step away from saying, oh, why am I back in this job? Wait a minute, I haven't been in this job for years.
Right.
I must be dreaming.
Right, and I don't want to dream this anymore. I remember saying that in my dream. I don't want to dream this anymore. Okay,
well, the way to work with that, let's say this was a recurring dream that was troubling you now, would be while you're awake, you go back into the dream scene. So I call that re-entry. So you're just re-entering the scene exactly as it was in the dream, and then you stop the action, kind of like you freeze frame a movie. And then you say, okay, I can change this. So you bring in a sense of control and power and agency and awareness, and you say, I could change this. I don't want to be in this job. I'm leaving. Where's the door? And you walk out of the building.
Okay.
See, then you're out.
You're out. You're done. And then it won't happen anymore. Is that right?
Very, very often it doesn't happen again. Often you have to repeat this. It's kind of like you have to rehearse what the action, the outcome that you want a few times, and it'll start to change.
Well, the mind with anything, including shifting consciousness, repetitiveness is usually what gets you, because then you believe it in your core, and then it starts to become real. It starts to happen. So I get that. Now, let's talk about there's a specific language in dreams.
Definitely.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of touch on that, because I think that's key to understanding them as well, because if you don't get the language and know how to spot the metaphors, then it's kind of hard to connect it to your daily life, which is what your book is so great at doing. The reason I encourage everyone to get Christopher Sowton's book, Dr. Christopher Sowton's book, Dreamworking, is because it's a practical sense of the dream world, and how to apply it to what's going on in your life, which is what I love.
Yeah.
So what about this?
It's great that you brought up the point about language, because a lot of people are very frustrated with their dreams, and they say, if a dream is trying to tell me something, why doesn't it just come out and tell me it in plain English?
Right.
A lot of people have that frustration.
Yeah.
But it doesn't speak plain English.
No.
The dreaming brain speaks in its own language.
Right.
Which I sometimes jokingly call dreamish. It speaks dreamish. It doesn't speak English or whatever language you speak when you're awake. So you do have to make a kind of effort of translation.
Right.
And then once you learn the language, it's like learning any language. It takes a bit of time, but it pays off because then it really opens up new vistas of understanding for you.
Right. So you have to kind of understand that and the metaphors, like, driving a car and not turning right instead of left means you just don't know which way to go. It has nothing to do with a car or driving or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Driving problem dreams are, like school problem dreams, are among the most common in this culture. And right up there with toilet problem dreams.
Well, no toilet problem dreams? I've never heard that.
Oh, yeah, trying to find a toilet and you can't find one that works, or you can't find one that's private, or you try to flush it and it overflows, or those are very common.
I thought the most common dream, other than flying, was you see yourself flying, is being naked in public.
No, I would disagree with that.
Well,
that's
I'm
not even in the top 10.
Really? I'm not a professional like you, but I just have heard that for so long. So what is it?
Yeah, it's pretty common, but it's not right up there with the driving problem dream or the school problem dream or the toilet problem dream. But
wow. Is flying up there?
Flying.
Yeah.
Flying is, I think, a universal thing that we all want to do on some level, because it in my book I distinguish between your body as it is when it's awake in the material world, and your dream body, which is your body in a dream.
Right.
And it's very often, it looks like the same body, and it seems to be the same body, but actually it's very different. It's subject to very different rules, because your dream body can do almost anything, including flying. And then we love to fly. I mean, it's quite a universally joyous experience that I think I would bet that all humans have flying dreams. And probably all primates, I would bet, have flying dreams.
Really? Wow.
I think it's a deeply universal thing for our spirit or our soul, or whatever part of us that's not tied into the physical material world and subject to pain and gravity and age and all those other things which our waking bodies are subject to. It in a dream, it's suddenly free, and when it realizes it's free, first thing it wants to do usually is to fly.
Wow. I have very few of those. My dream body is very different. It's just 25 years younger. And
well, that's common too.
True. I mean, seriously, I look
for people to dream about when they had more energy, when they were in better shape, when they looked better, when they had more sexual energy, before they had their injury or before they gained all their weight, or that's extremely common.
Right. Well,
so it's your dream body can take you right back, even to childhood and to infancy, and even very possibly to previous lifetimes. Who knows? It's not subject to all the limitations, including the temporal ones, to do with time and age.
Right. Right. Well, okay, there's a bunch more to talk about, but I am going to, and we're running out of time. There's so much, because I want to talk about negative figures in your dreams and sexual dreams, and this is all there's so much you just brought up. Anyway, I want people to call in, though, if they want to. For Dr. Christopher Sowton, if you have a question about your dreaming life, or if you are just a dreamer and want to know anything, this is the time to call, because he knows what he's talking about. 949-313-8880. The lines are open. I know it's Mother's Day, but hopefully you've done your celebrating and you're listening, and call in, because it is, if you've had a dream, a recurring dream, or a dream that's bothering you, or you want to get answers from, this is the person to talk to. So call in now if you want to, 949-313-8880. There you go. So if anyone's out there listening, they can call in. And also, too, Christopher, how do people find you? Do you have a website that they can go on to find out about your
my website is just my full name, ChristopherSowton.com.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they can go on there and check out. There's lots of information there about various different aspects of dream work.
Okay, I'm going to spell your last name. Christopher spelled just like Christopher Columbus, and it's Sowton, Sowton.
Sowton.
Right. .com?
Yes.
.com. Okay, great. Now, do you work with people one-on-one or strictly in groups and workshops?
I do Dream Circle, and I do workshops several times a year, and I have my private practice, which is it originally was a naturopathic healthcare practice, but it has over the years kind of gravitated towards a more dream work based practice. So a lot of the people who come to see me now are just coming to do dream work.
Right. Are they coming to do dream work for healthcare reasons or?
In some cases, yes. And in some cases, it's more, I think you would say, personal growth reasons.
Oh, that's interesting.
And, there's a huge overlap there.
Yeah, there is. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So what do you tell people if they're having nightmares?
Well, it depends what the nightmare is. Now, you were talking about frightening figures before. This is one of the more complex areas of dream work.
Right.
Because a figure that appears to be frightening in your dream might be an extremely positive figure if you actually summon the courage to go meet it and converse with it.
I like
then
that.
It may turn into one of the most positive things that ever happened to you. And the biggest category here is what we call a shadow dream. A shadow part of you is a real part of you, but it's in the shadows because you don't know much about it yet. It hasn't emerged, and it hasn't been welcomed into your sense of who you think you are. So these dreams are very, very important and very positive, and yet they're usually very frightening. These are the dreams of the scary figure knocking at the door, or the scary figure pursuing you down a dark street that so many people have. And, the sad thing is that most people never work with these dreams. They never have somebody say, okay, it's time to stop running and turn around and face that figure and talk with it. And because as soon as you do that, it all changes.
Right. Well, that goes back to that old joke. Hey, monster, why are you chasing me? I don't know. It's your dream. And suddenly they were friends, and that was that. But, you're right. I think I never would. That's interesting to me because it makes sense when you say it, that it's probably something you need, could be very positive to help you grow forward, to know who's chasing you, what's going on. So,
right.
Okay, what about?
And it is something that you may need help with if you're dealing with a very frightening, intimidating dream figure. That may be time when you need the help of a dream worker. A lot of the stuff in my book you can do on your own. You can coach yourself and guide yourself through it.
Right.
But occasionally, with a really terrifying dream figure, you may need somebody to help you figure out what kind of figure it is, because you're just so scared in the dream that all you want to do is wake up, and you don't want to be resubjected to that fear, so you don't want to work with it even.
Right.
So that may be time for the help of a dream worker.
Right, and I totally agree with that, because I think even when people have reoccurring dreams about a trauma, sometimes they need help because that goes beyond. It's something psychological. I think they need help with as well. So I'm the first one that'll say, "Go, get professional." What about the other common thing I hear from people is birth and baby dreams?
Yeah, birth dreams and child and baby dreams are very, very common, and they're either they have a wonderful, joyous feeling tone, or they may have a very poignant sense of grief or loss in them. And in either case, they're very important. If they have the poignant sense of grief or loss, it usually is what I call a personal spirit dream, where the child or the baby is depicting a part of the dreamer's own spirit, which they've been disconnected from. And that's why that feeling of grief or loss is there. And usually the disconnection happened because of a trauma, usually quite a long time ago. But still, these are very positive dreams, potentially, because the dream is setting up the conditions whereby there might be a reconnection, where the dreamer may say, "Oh, I'm going to go pick up this baby," or "I'm going to take this child home and adopt it," or I'm going to bring this orphan home with me and feed her. And then you see what's happening, a wonderful reconnection between the dreamer and the part of them that was traumatized and split off a long time ago is happening.
Right.
And again, that may be something that you need a bit of help with to make sure that reconnection goes forward smoothly.
Right. So, and this is another example of why you shouldn't just use universal dream dictionaries, because I remember when I had a dream of a baby when I was young, and I said to my mom, I dreamt about a baby, and I thought she was going to get upset because I was like 14 or 13 or something. And she said, "Oh, someone's getting married. And I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "What?" And she said, "That's what it means."
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a good example of a fixed meaning problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, for her, having a baby in a dream only has one possible meaning, which is that someone's getting married.
Right.
And these are very, very common in every culture has
something.
A whole raft of fixed dream meanings. And the only problem with them is that they limit it to one thing. And your baby in your dream when you were 14 might have had nothing to do with someone getting married. It probably had something more to do with some new beginning that was happening in you.
Exactly. That was a new birth. I, at 14, became 17 magazine National Fashion Council representative, which is, in a little town. And I dreamt I had a baby right before that happened to me. But yeah, so there you go.
So what I do when I encounter this fixed meaning problem, which happens all the time, is I just say, okay, that's one possible meaning. That's great. Let's keep that on the table, and then let's consider other possible meanings too. So try and do it in a very inclusive way.
Right.
But open the door to all possible meanings.
Right. Even at 13 or however old I was, I don't remember, 13 or 14, somewhere in that. Even then I knew it was like, what? Seriously,
Mom. That doesn't fit.
Yeah.
This brings up another good point, which is that how do you know when you're making a connection whether it's accurate or not? You see, you had the feeling when your mother said about your dream, oh, that means someone's getting married, that doesn't quite feel right.
Right.
So you were not resonating with her interpretation, right?
Right.
So and this is really the test of whether you're on the right track or not, is you just have a feeling
Your
like
gut.
it's
Your
kind
intuition.
of like, that's right.
Your intuition, yeah. All right, we're running out of time. We've like 10 minutes left, and we have to talk about sex. We do. We have to talk about sexual. But I'm going to open the lines one more time. If anybody's brave enough, I always get like 20, 30, 40 people after the show going, I should have called.
Right.
949-313-8880. Now we don't even have time for a longer call, just a short one. If somebody has a question, please call in. But I have to get to this because it's such a big issue with dreams and everything.
Yeah.
Is the sexual part of it. Go ahead. What is that? What does that mean? Is there really that much meaning to it? Or is it just our brain doing what our animalistic brain knows to do?
Right. Well, again, I can only say it depends because it could be anywhere from just a dream where your body is starting to feel sexual while you're asleep, and it's producing sexual feelings and responses that appear in your dream, which I call that somatic input. It's like, whatever is happening in your body as you're waking up and you're still dreaming could appear in your dream, including sexual arousal. So it could simply be that. But, sexual attraction is a very universal and hardwired response, and it could connect to many, many things. And often when you have one of those sexual dreams about someone who's divinely attractive, and you feel absolutely in awe and completely in love, and so strongly attracted to them, then usually that's not just somatic input. There's some important message there about something that you want, that your desire energy is trying to reach out and connect to something. And it's choosing a particular person to depict what it is that you desire. So those ones are really worth looking at and thinking about. They're very, very high voltage dreams.
Really? What if they're inappropriate, though? I mean, totally like off the wall, and you know that that's somebody that you should never be with. Like,
Yeah.
So is that still?
Yeah, I think they're still definitely worth thinking about. It's that is something where you have to pay attention to the feeling tone. If you're attracted to a very inappropriate person in a dream, and let's say you're having a sexual encounter with a very inappropriate person,
right,
and the feeling tone is positive, then I think there's an important message there. Then what you should do is say, why would I be attracted to that person? What qualities do they have that I would possibly want to be attracted to? And try and work with it that way. On the other hand, if the feeling tone is very negative, it could be showing you that you're investing your erotic and sexual energy in the wrong place for some reason. So then I would handle it like an ego check motif. In other words, it's giving you mirroring and feedback to your ego position about something that you're doing. It's like it's holding up a mirror and saying, hey, you're doing this. You see this? Do you want to keep doing this?
Right.
And it could be doing it about some erotic infatuation or relationship, relational energy that you may be putting in a place that's not good for you. So it really depends on the feeling tone in the dream.
Right. So actually then, I mean, kind of to sum up here, there are no dreams that are really, are there dreams that are unimportant that you can just ignore?
Yeah, I do think there are some that they just don't have an organized or a coherent quality. They're just your sleeping brain is riffing along and doing this and doing that and that and that and that, and there, it's not. You look at it and you think, no, this isn't really trying to give me a message. So just let those go.
Okay.
Don't waste too much time working with those. But if you look for oddness is very, very important in dreams. If a figure appears in a dream and it's very odd, like why would that person or why would that animal be there? Or why would I be there in that particular shop, in that market? And it makes you wonder why, then very likely that's an important dream.
Good.
And emotional intensity is another important marker. If the dream comes and it's backed up by a strong emotion or a vivid, intense feelings, then very likely it's important.
Right, but both positive or negative, right?
Yeah, positive or negative, yeah.
Okay, now we're really running short on time, and I know your passion is to incorporate the dream work into healthcare. Correct?
Yeah, that is one of my. It's not my only passion, but it is right up there because what has happened to dreams in healthcare? They're where are they now? They used to be an important part of healthcare. They used to be an important part of psychoanalysis. Right. They are an important part in many traditional societies.
Well, you're not just talking about healthcare like psychoanalysis. You're talking about physical problems that can be cured.
Yeah, I'm talking about medicine,
right,
and nursing, and psychiatry and psychology and counseling and coaching and pastoral counseling. I'm talking about all these things. Any situation where a person could sit down with another person and say, I had a very troubling dream, or I had a very mysterious dream. Could you help me try to understand this? If we were open to this, if we put out the invitation for this would be happening all the time.
Right.
Millions of times a day in everybody's office all around the world.
Right. And you've had instances where people's dream interpretations actually help their physical bodies heal.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, I want to emphasize that.
Yeah, there are many, many cases, documented cases and cases in my practice where there's specific information about a health problem. Now, these are relatively rare. Usually, the information is more what I would call early stage preventive medicine, where it's giving at a very early level. It's saying, whoa, you are doing something which is dangerous. You're doing something which is stressful. You're doing something which is throwing your whole system out of balance.
Right.
And the driving problem dreams, which we mentioned earlier, are first on the list. Because when you have a driving problem dream, it's basically saying you are not in control of your life.
You don't know where you're going
and how fast it's going there.
Right.
So you better do something about that. And that is preventive medicine.
That's right. That is. Oh, see, I told you I could do this for another 2 hours, or at least.
I know.
I'm not going to make you do
that. It's an interesting topic, isn't it?
It's fascinating, and the book is wonderful. So, again, I want people to know it's Dr. Christopher Sowton, and the website is Christopher Sowton, SOWTON.com. You can find out everything you want to know, including all about the book and where the book is, and I'm sure you're on Amazon and everything else as well. Dreamworking. Dreamworking. How to listen to the inner guidance of your dreams. And you've written another book, too, I think, haven't you, before this one?
The one before this was How to Use Dreams in Healthcare.
See?
And it's more addressed to healthcare practitioners. But you know what? The material and the method is the same. It's very, very similar. But the more recent book, Dreamworking, is addressed to everybody. It's kind of voiced for you and me and everyone who's interested in their dreams, not just practitioners.
Right. And the reason I liked it so much is because it gives you that practical sense of how to apply all of this. You talk about theory, you talk about method, you talk about motives. You have 5 steps called catch, clarify, orient, connect, and respond, which really helps because some people can't get past the catch and clarify. So, I mean, it really is a practical handbook for getting hold of your dreams and understanding what they're trying to tell you, because the important ones, the ones that you said have feelings or emotions and are trying to tell you something. And if we pay attention, we can avoid or prevent or cure, even heal something just because we're bringing it into awareness. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. This was a great show. I loved it. Thank you. And it's late in Toronto, and it is Mother's Day in Canada as well as here in America. So you doing this on Mother's Day is also exceptional, and I really appreciate your time. I love the book, Dr. Christopher Sowton. You just dream on, baby.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
You're welcome. I loved it. Thank you. And like I said, dream on. So keep on working on the dream thing too. And people can find, it's a fascinating subject. I think there's a lot to it. I really do. And I'm going to find that book that your friend wrote or your colleague.
Heads Up Dreaming?
Heads Up Dreaming. Yeah. I'm going to find that one as well. So, I mean, good luck to you and keep going. And if you've got another book, we'll have you back on.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Take care. Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Dr. Christopher Sowton that wrote the book Dreamworking. It's fascinating. And like I said, it really does connect right to you and your life. I am Servet Hassan. You can find me at servethassan.com. It's ServetHassan.com. All of these shows go up on my YouTube channel, so you can listen to them again. There's other shows if you've missed in the past. And I swear, going to start blogging again. I have many projects in the works and lots going on, but I will get there. All of these will be available as podcasts too. I'm working on that as well. And I haven't been doing workshops as much because I'm working on online seminars and workshops and all of that too. So it's all coming. It's hard to believe it's May. I've got a show next week. I'll be traveling. It's pre-recorded, but it's a wonderful show with a man that's written a book on Ayurvedic medicine. He's German and he's fascinating. And then we're going into Memorial Day weekend. So it's all going to happen. It's all in divine time. So I'm very happy with that. I don't push it. I can go with the flow. You have to, if you start to force things, that's not the way to go either. So, and I practice what I preach. I walk the talk. So again, it's all about being your authentic self, which I'm doing, and I hope you are too. It's a beautiful Mother's Day. I love my daughter to death. I mean, I really love her, and I think that's the most important thing I've ever done in my life is be a mother. So be you to the full, because that's what's really, truly beautiful. When you are, everything will come to you anyway, whatever you want, whatever you're looking for, whatever you're trying to be, it's all in you already. Just be you to the full. Let it out. Happy Mother's Day, and we will see you next Sunday. Thank you. Bye.